Hello and welcome to the Box to Box podcast. I'm Taryn, your host, and today I'm joined by David and Amos. So, fellas, how are we doing this evening?
Oh, good.
Good. Glad to
All
hear
good,
it.
yeah.
Glad football's back.
Definitely. Well, football is
Time.
back. Premier League first round of fixtures. Just wanted to get your overreaction of what your thoughts were for the football this weekend, whether you enjoyed it or you weren't happy with it. But I'm sure, David, you were happy with it.
Just a bit, mate. Yeah, just a bit. It was a hell of a drive down to Norwich, but when you see that 3-0 win, it doesn't mean nothing. Do you know what? Just overriding emotions, we're just like so happy to see. Obviously, a lot of Norwich fans as well, but just football fans out. Like there was, I don't know whether you've seen Carrow Road. So one of the away fans' pubs was over the other side of the canal. So we walked over this canal, and there's like Liverpool fans on one side, Norwich fans on the other side. The pubs are just full. Just seeing people back is just like, it's just amazing after the year and bit that we've had of nobody being able to go to a game of football. And obviously for me, it was good that I watched my team win. So happy days.
Definitely. Amos, how about you? How did you find the weekend's football?
Yeah, I was loving it up until about 4:30 on Sunday afternoon when Manchester City, as they often do, ruined my weekend. I was actually away on holiday in Anglesey, and we'd found a lovely quaint pub in, I forget the name of the place, Bow Morris, I think it was. Absolutely beautiful, rolling landscape at the side, and then Manchester City obviously come along and ruin my day. It was the first 10 minutes was superb. From City's point of view, looked really sharp, looked really electric, and then about the following 80 minutes was like League Two football. It was pretty dire, and Spurs deservedly won in the end.
Definitely. It was a very good game. And I'm sure we'll start talking about City possibly tapping their credit card again. So I think we'll start off with the latest transfer news. We'll start off with the confirmed ones. I know last night Odegaard moved back to Arsenal after his loan spell. And in the days before, Tammy Abraham has joined up with Jose Mourinho at Roma. David, we'll start with you. What do you think of, first of all, Tammy Abraham's transfer and then Martin Odegaard's as well?
Yeah, Tammy Abraham's a little bit of a strange one for me. Just the way he's gone to Roma for so much money. Don't get me wrong, he's a good footballer and he done well for Chelsea, especially when they couldn't spend any money. And he's unfortunate that they went out and bought Werner, and now obviously Lukaku doesn't stand a chance in playing. I'm not sure how much of a relationship he's got with Mourinho and how much that's affected it. I know people are saying he's rejoined Mourinho, but I don't really know how much. I don't know, I might be wrong, but I don't think he was that big a part of the team when Mourinho was last there. Ultimately, I mean, the moves have worked for Lukaku going to Italy, and he's in a similar sort of role where he's been at Chelsea, can't really get a lot of football. It's very difficult, especially for young players at Chelsea, to get any football. Probably be a good move for him, good move for Roma. You know, you look at Manchester United's Chris Smalling, who went there and he's ended up staying there and he's done quite well. It's less pressure. It'll probably be a good move. It's a lot of money. I think that's the only thing that's kind of put me off, is it's quite a lot of money for someone who's unproven, maybe. I don't know. But, you know, he might do well, so we'll see. Odegaard's a good signing for Arsenal. They need to get somebody in. Obviously, getting beat 2-0 by Brentford on the opening day was probably the most Arsenal thing in the world. It's a tough one for them because obviously they're going away to a side that are just being promoted, who've not been in the Premier League before as well. I think that makes a big difference. Like Liverpool beating Norwich isn't that big, really. Norwich have been here before, but Brentford beating Arsenal is massive. So they needed that little spark and that little, you know, a good feeling of a signing to come in. So yeah, that was much needed for them. And, you know, he settled into the club a little bit last season, didn't he? So I think he'll be a good signing for Arsenal.
I don't know about you, but I find it quite strange that, you know, Chelsea have gone from selling quite a tall physical striker to then buying another one, considering Tammy Abraham, you know, is quite young, much younger than Lukaku. So what do you think about that?
It's the new shiny toy, isn't it? Everyone wants the new shiny toy, and I know they've already had that shiny toy, and they palmed it off, and they've got it back again. But he's gone and built himself, hasn't he? So I think it's just one of them things. Someone, a Chelsea fan I know, was sort of saying, "Why have we spent 97.5 million on a player that we already had?" And it's like, yeah, but he wouldn't be the player he is now unless you'd have got rid of him. He went and sort of proved himself at Man United. There's definitely proved himself at Inter Milan. So, it's swings and roundabouts. You pay what you pay. If you need that in your team, you need it. That's what you've got to do.
How about you, Amos? How do you feel about these two transfers?
Yeah, you mentioned Arsenal, and Arsenal are going to Arsenal, really, aren't they, with that result on Friday night? But I actually think the Ødegaard transfer is very uncharacteristic for Arsenal. It comes in at around £30 million for a guy who not too long ago was being tipped as honestly the next biggest thing, if not the biggest thing ever. When he joined Real Madrid as a young teenager, the potential on that man's back was insane. And now he's joining a team who, if you look at the last few years, you have to say there's probably about 6, 7, maybe 8 Premier League clubs above Arsenal. So it shows some ambition there. You compare it to their other business this summer, and you look at £50 million spent on Ben White. And now I'm a fan of Ben White. I know Gary Neville had a little rant at the end of the Brentford game saying it's not good enough for defenders just to be good on the ball. Yeah, I think he's a lot more than just a ball playing defender. When you look at the business, the money they spent there, and you compare it to this, it comes in about £20 million less, which you actually have to say at the end of the day is really quite shrewd for Arsenal, for a club who, have gone into a few car crash transfer deals in the past. And I know we'll come to another man who's costing them a lot. This actually is, in the current market, quite a decent deal. In terms of Abraham, I think really it's a good move for everybody, bar Roma's bank balance. Chelsea will be laughing at the fee they've been able to recuperate, £34 million for a 5-year deal. That helps them in their transfer kitty. And I know it may be a thing of the past, but FFP, whatever comes next, that'll help them balance the books in that way. He'll score goals in Serie A. I think it's becoming a bit of a misconception at the moment that Serie A is a pretty dull, unentertaining league. The last few seasons, it's been one of the highest scoring in Europe. So he'll get an absolute bag full of goals. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him return to the Premier League in a similar style to Lukaku. Probably, knowing Chelsea, he'll go back there in a couple of seasons for, 65 million, the buyout clause. So it'll be interesting to watch him over there.
Definitely. I think it's one of those where you get the opportunity to prove yourself in a different league and maybe raise that transfer value as well. So we've talked about Arsenal's incomings, but also there's possible outcomings in Arsenal as well. Captain Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang has been linked with a move to Barcelona. Even though they're having a bit of an economic crisis over there in Catalonia and at Barcelona. What do you make of the whole transfer saga?
So I think if Arsenal are able to recuperate money, a substantial fee on Aubameyang, again, they'll be absolutely laughing. Barcelona don't seem to have learned from the mistakes they made, 2 hours ago, it seems. They're looking to, again, go in for a player who's over 30, will be costing substantial wages at a time when they've just struggled to register a couple of free agents. I'm not quite sure where they're going to be able to fund this from. Maybe they'll get PK working in the canteen on minimum wage, because when you look at their figures, you just don't understand how they're doing it. They just seem to be going down a bigger and bigger black hole.
Yeah, definitely as well. I think the talk is of a certain man that I think David will be very familiar with, Philip Coutinho being involved in a swap deal as opposed to a transfer fee. What do you make of that, David?
Well, I mean, when we got that money for Coutinho, you're sort of thinking, my word, why are you spending so much money on a player? Like, he was good, but he wasn't 140 odd million good, and he's proved that. It's no surprise when they blow money like that on players like Coutinho that they've ended up in the state that they're in. And it's like the reverse effect of what happens to like Manchester City, Chelsea, any of the big six really now. When they go in for a player, the price goes up. It's like now anyone who Barcelona are trying to sell, clubs will know that they're desperate to get rid, so the price goes down. So you're talking like Coutinho could end up going for something stupid like 15, 20 million, because they might just be that desperate to get him out the club that they'll just let him go for whatever they possibly can, get him off the wage bill. It's a bit mad that, they're trying to get Aubameyang and sign other players when they've just let probably the greatest player they'll ever have at the club walk away for free because of financial restraints. Surely they should now be taking a bit of time to themselves and saying, right, we need to just get rid of whoever we can. No incomings, get some youngsters in. You know, Aubameyang, is he really the player you want to be bringing in? Like, again, he's all right, but is he the profile of player you want to be bringing into your club, especially when you're in a bit of a mess? Like, okay, maybe you get him on a bit of a cheap, I don't know what the deal's talking, you probably get him 20 million, maybe less off Arsenal, because I know he's kind of fell out with Arteta, but then his wage is still going to be high. You're not going to get any resale value off him. I don't know. I think it's a bit mad that they're going after players like that. And as you mentioned, Sarah, they are in massive trouble, in debt, and they can't just keep throwing more money at it to get themselves out of debt. It won't work.
Exactly. I think you're talking about a rebuild. I know that they've been trying to palm off a few of their youngest talents. I think Moriba is looking to sort of leave the club as well. Do you think that's probably the best way out of it for Barcelona, selling some of their youngest talents, or does that sort of damage them for the future?
I mean, at this stage, probably players like Moriba and Pedri and stuff like that, you're probably best building your team around them at this stage and getting rid of some of the more established players. You're probably making a bit more money on them at this stage. If you pick Moriba and Pedri and whatnot in your team, they're probably going to be worth more in a couple of years. You know, they might need to do what Porto do every season for a couple of years to get themselves back in the red. You know, get some good young players coming through, sell them on, just get that sort of system working. Liverpool do it to an extent where they bring players through. I think most clubs do, but you know, getting money for the likes of Marco Grujic and Harry Wilson this year is quite good business, and that helps you. That helps you a lot. So I think getting rid of players like, as you say, Moriba, what's he going to be worth now? You know, he's still kind of unproven. You give him a couple of years in the team, you never know. He could be worth 40, 50, 60, 70 million, depending on how good he is. You're probably best keeping your younger players at this stage and building around them for me.
Yeah, I agree for sure. I know there's been one big money move at Man City, but there could be another one on the horizon. Harry Kane. Yeah. He's decided not to travel with Spurs in the Europa League. He didn't train for a few weeks. He wasn't there on the weekend. What do you make of it all?
It's a mess. I think from start to finish, it's been a mess. It's emerged this week that Harry Kane didn't not turn up to training. In fact, Daniel Levy let him have signed off for another week on holiday. But you know, immediately you're thinking, if you're so desperate for a move, why on earth are you sat around the sun lounger and in the pool? You know, if you want this move so badly, and it seems like his heart is set on City, an official transfer request seems to have gone in. Get out there and go and make it done. His PR team are going to have to work around the clock whenever the transfer window shuts and wherever he is, because after the European Championships and the love and admiration that was surrounding him after them, it's going to be so difficult for him to enter a stadium in England and not just be met by a chorus of boos, because you saw it against Spurs with Grealish, and you know, Grealish was pretty fair about the deal. You know, he said he signed a contract with Villa last year. He said he wanted to leave to a big club to earn trophies. Some Villa fans took that one way, some Villa fans took it the other way. But so far in the 2 matches he's played for City, he's been booed. Now, take Harry Kane on the other hand, and even if he did come to City, I could see why people would then turn around and want to, the public opinion would want to be negative towards him, because the whole transfer has been an absolute shambles. Whether or not it goes through now, he's always going to have this cloud over his head that the summer of 2021 was just a circus for Harry Kane.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like you said, it's been a big old mess. I think as well, Daniel Levy, we know, isn't the kind of person to splash a lot of cash, which I think he has done this transfer window. So do you think with that in mind, he'd be confident of getting rid of Harry Kane? I know he said he's not leaving the club, but I think if Daniel Levy's spending money, it means that there's going to be money coming in somewhere.
Yeah, well, like you say, Daniel Levy has in the past been tight. We saw that on the Spurs documentary where they were eking out every last penny for every transfer that was going out. One thing that made me laugh this week, however, was the chat that Levy was no longer taking calls from City. So I don't know where that leaves Guardiola, that leaves Bergerstein and the City hierarchy if they're not even having the calls answered. But yeah, they've spent big this summer, which, like you say, is uncharacteristic for Tottenham over the past few years. And they're usually a club who like to work off net spend. So if they're spending that money and they've not got any outgoings, you do question, well, you know, what was the plan to sell Kane, and it's just not happened for as much as they wanted.
I know. I mean, another world-class player on the move, apparently, Kylian Mbappe, David. I think a lot has been made of him going to Real Madrid, but also possibly coming to Liverpool. What do you think of it all as well?
I think this is one to watch probably next year, next summer. Can't really see him going anywhere this year. The thing that really, obviously as a Liverpool fan, you see these rumours of Mbappe coming to Liverpool and you can't help but get excited. He's such a good player. And, you tell yourself it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. And then you see videos of like Klopp just like slapping his dad in the face and giving him a hug. And you're like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen, but it's not going to happen. He's got Real Madrid written all over him, hasn't he? He has. I mean, the way PSG are at the minute, it's mad because for me, obviously you've got Messi, and Messi's probably the greatest to ever do it, but he's 34, and I think Mbappe is the best player there. If you kind of take him Messi's age and stuff, obviously Messi is fantastic, and on a football pitch is the best player. He's untouchable for me. Obviously Ronaldo's up there with him. But Mbappe is like the next best thing, if you like. So for PSG to just let him walk away might be a bit strange. But I mean, is his contract run out next summer or something like that?
Yeah.
Is it a clause kicks in? Is his contract runs out? You cannot let him walk away for free. It cannot happen. PSG have got to move heaven and earth to even just keep him, like get him to sign a new 2-year contract and then sell him for anything you can, because he's just a phenomenal talent. If he moves to Real Madrid or Liverpool or wherever he ends up, that's going to be arguably the best signing that anyone has ever made in the history of football if he walks away for free. I mean, there's been some good free transfers in the past, but my word, that will be number one. It'll be untouchable. So that's probably one to watch for next year, but it's certainly, he's that big of a player. We're already talking about it this year.
I think financially, though, in reality, who can afford him? I think we know that the Spanish clubs are in a bit of trouble with debt, and salaries and financial fair play. City, I think, have put their cards on the table already. Juventus don't really seem keen to spend as much money. So, in reality, is there any clubs out there who you think can realistically afford Kylian Mbappe this summer?
Probably not this summer. I think any deal that was to happen, particularly with Liverpool, would be very heavily weighted on bonuses and goal bonuses and appearance bonuses, like most of our players are anyway. His base salary would be not a lot. I mean, I say low, more than what we all earn in a year per week, put it that way, probably double or treble. But in terms of like what he's probably worth in a normal year, the base salary would be quite low for him to join Liverpool. That's the only way it happen. I don't know where he'd end up. I think realistically, if he wants to make money, his best bet is to sign whatever PSG offer him. As you say, if City get Kane in, is there going to be enough? There's enough money, but I mean, is there enough within the wage budget and the structure at the club? And is there space in the team for him? Probably. He's that good. He makes space for himself. But I think his best bet, if he's after the money, is certainly to stay at PSG. If he wants to go and play football and enjoy himself and probably win some trophies, maybe a move to England is probably on his cards. It could go anyway. It could all be rumours for all we know, and it could just be his agent stirring it up to get more money out of PSG, and he doesn't end up going anywhere, unfortunately.
Amos, what about you? Where do you think Kylian Mbappe will end up?
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it? Because you'd think any footballer or even non-footballer, the one place you want to be at the moment is Paris Saint-Germain. It seems the entire world is revolving around that club at the moment. By all accounts, his dream has been to play for Real Madrid, and it's a cliche that we hear a lot. But you have to accept that players have those dreams, and they have those ambitions. Barcelona and Real Madrid, certainly, say pre-2015, when it started to go downhill a little bit, they were the epitome of European royalty. That was where everybody wanted to end up. That's where everybody went if they were good enough. So maybe Real Madrid for our eyes and our thoughts aren't where they are now. But for a footballer, there's still the hope that he could be the one to resurge Los Blancos and take them back to the European pedestal again. That's probably his hope and his dream. He got to have one of his dreams fulfilled in the Euros by playing with Benzema, and I know in the French media he spoke about that really he warmingly spoke about that. So if he could get to do that in the latter parts of Benzema's career, take that mantle and sort of carry on that legacy of a really fantastic French striker, then I'm sure that'll sit well with him. Sometimes players don't want to be around the best, and maybe that's what's going through his head. He wants to be the best on his own, and is no doubt insane at the moment. When you look at that Real Madrid squad, their star players have either left in the case of Ramos, or they're touching the latter part of 30. So he'd no doubt be the idol there, and he'd be the person or the footballer he aspires to be.
I think for sure. I think Madrid doesn't compare to Merseyside, but we'll move on from that quite rapidly. From big transfers.
Not go as good
I mean, I can see him here. I think we've spoken a lot about PSG. I don't know. You have to speak to him. We'll find out when he comes to Liverpool, won't we?
Well, the only other thing I was going to say, mate, is like as much as he might, I don't know, he might want to stay at PSG. He got whistled, didn't he, at the weekend by his own fans and stuff. So you don't know what that sort of impact is of that as well. He certainly won't get whistled at Anfield. So yeah, come on, Kylian.
Well, I think
do the right thing, mate.
He said himself, he was like, you've got no other choice. You said that you wanted to be competitive. You wanted the best team, and you've got it here. So you've got no other, other option, I guess. So I think he's stuck. Speaking of PSG, I think their big transfer, which I think we've glossed over a bit, Messi moving to France. I think that has brought about a big sort of talk about financial fair play and whether it's really working or whether it's not really doing its job. I think UEFA have then decided to bring in the salary cap. Sorry, David, I know you know a lot about it, I imagine, from the sort of presence of it in America, heavily in MLB and the NBA. So can you give us a little insight into it all?
Basically, right, if you've got enough money, this means absolutely nothing. So in baseball particularly, I'm not massive on basketball, but in baseball particularly, the Los Angeles Dodgers just go well past the luxury tax threshold, and I think the last time I checked, they were paying something like 50 million. I don't know whether that's a month or I don't know. They're paying like 50 million just in tax because they've gone over the threshold. So for teams like Manchester City, for teams like Paris Saint-Germain, probably Chelsea, to an extent Manchester United, maybe Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham, I don't know. They might just go, well, we'll go over the luxury tax. It's not an issue. Even the likes of Barca and Real Madrid, the revenue they make. Basically, they'll set a cap on how much a club can it'll either be on wages or it'll be in total expenditure, and you'll get taxed so much. So I think in the NBA, it might be like $1.50 for every dollar that you are over the tax, over the threshold. So it'll be something along those lines. But as I say, for those that have got that sort of money, like as I say, the Dodgers have. I think the Red Sox have gone slightly over the threshold as well, just before the deadline was the last time I checked there. It doesn't really mean anything. If it's coinciding with FFP, then there's a chance that might work. But I mean, as we've seen, FFP doesn't work. It does, but there's a way to get around it, so it doesn't. If that makes sense. So yeah. It's a nice idea, but at the same time, it's like, well, for those that have got the money, they will just see this as an opportunity to sort of give themselves a competitive advantage by we'll spend the extra 50 million a year or whatever it is. It's not a problem to us.
Amos, I know David's talking about how the uber rich won't really be affected by this, but I think UEFA have come up with the idea that the luxury tax that gets paid will go into almost like a prize pool, and it will be shared among the teams that are in the leagues that the teams are competing in. Do you think that will make it fairer, or do you just think it won't really have much of an impact?
Yeah, so we saw probably Michel Platini's biggest brainchild as UEFA president this summer when what was meant to be last summer when he designed the pan-European Championship spread across, 12 host cities in the end. That was one of his brilliant ideas as UEFA president. I want brilliant inverted commas for those who may have not picked up on the sarcasm there. And I think FFP is another one of his incredibly foolproof ideas that is it 11 years or so since it was brought in 2009?
I think so, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, we're already seeing the cracks of it. The thing it was designed to do hasn't worked. It's clear to see that. You look at the numbers. Take PSG, for example. Yeah, they may have only spent £60 million in transfer fees this summer, but when you look at the wage bill they're spending over this next 12 months, FFP is broken. In terms of the next progression of financial control in European football, it's going to shape the landscape of European football for the next, hopefully, past 11 years that FFP has lived for. And, you're hoping for the next 25, 30, 40 years, this will hopefully balance the nature of competition out. Whether or not it works, I'm not too sure, because as has been mentioned, if you've got the money, you'll pay the money for the tax, and it's almost like a get out of jail card if you can afford it. How much is able to be reinvested in the inverted commas lower clubs in European football waits to be seen. How much will be in that kitty also waits to be seen, because it's okay saying, yeah, we'll put it back into, say, for example, outside the top 5 leagues or even a bit further down. Yet only 3 clubs may be able to afford that. And when you're trying to share, 150, 200 million pound across, say, 13, 14, 15 member nations, it's going to work out next to nothing, really. So the logistics of the salary cap and the salary tax is going to really sort of shape how football develops in terms of contracts, transfers, and all the money side of it over the next few years.
I'm quite
just
interested.
Want to jump in there. Taran Dan's put a comment in basically saying what me and Amos have said, essentially punishing those with more money than God financially makes no sense whatsoever. As we say, if you've got the money, PSG, City, Chelsea, potentially, you're just going to say, yeah, it's like signing another Lukaku. We can do that, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we'll start to see. Sorry, Taran. I think we'll start to see more of these sort of the sides PSG are currently building. When you look around, and for want of a better word, it's Galacticos really everywhere. I think that's something City wouldn't mind doing. Maybe more of an English spin on it. So Harry Kane, for example, and trying to build a real English super club. And I don't think Bayern Munich would mind being able to spend a little bit more in Germany as well, prizing those talents away from the Bundesliga.
I think with what we've all been talking about, I'm quite interested to see what you think. For me, do you see the changes in terms of, the salary cap as necessary and it needs to be brought into football? Or do you see it as almost like an Americanization of sort of European sport? I think we've seen with the Super League, the playoff, and certain other things, there's been quite a big of an American influence in Europe in recent years. So do you think that's part of the reason, or do you think it's just something that needs to be brought into football over here? I'll start with you, David.
It's a tough one because the traditionalist in me says, we don't need to change anything. Particularly football is great as it is. We love it. The raw emotion that we have when we go to match. And I know it's changed quite a lot. It's become very business-like. I was having a discussion, let's say, not an argument, with one of my mates before the Norwich game last weekend, and he was moaning about FSG, and I was saying, yeah, but you're not going to get anyone any better who efficiently runs the club. I know we all have this dream. I know Amos is probably a bit different to us. We all have this dream of having someone that has a lot of money, can spend a lot of money, and also loves the club. I think City have got that, Leicester have got that, PSG have probably got that. Not everybody can have that. There's not that much money in the world to give every club someone like that. So in terms of how we are, we have to be sort of wise with what we spend. So in that side of things, the business side of it is already kind of taken over. It's become very much business-like. The other side of me says, like, as someone who enjoys American sports, they do get it right. They do understand how to make it more enjoyable. But I don't know. I mean, the Super League was wrong. It was just a wrong idea. The salary cap might not be a wrong idea, even though it's a very American thought process behind it, and it's tried and tested. It's not all of the leagues over there, I don't think. There's luxury taxes, but there's not salary caps in every league. Like you've got the NFL, for example, where there's a strict salary cap. You cannot go over that cap. But do we need it in this day and age? Maybe, because things are getting a little bit out of control. If you even look at the last 10, 15 years of how much, back in like 2009, if someone spent 30, 40 million, you sort of went, wow, 30, 40 million on one player. That's a lot of money. Now, like Liverpool signed Canate for 40 million. There's someone no one batted an eyelid. It was just like, yes, good money. Now we're talking 100 million, 125 million, nearly 200 million for Neymar and Mbappe. That's big money. So I wonder, do we need to sort of rein that in a little bit, especially when you've got like so many people who've lost the job during the last year. Money isn't going up for the NHS and all those emergency workers who were just superstars and deserve more money. But yet we've got, Man City throwing 125 million at Harry Kane, Chelsea are throwing 97.5 million at Lukaku. I just wonder whether it's a necessity at this stage, whether it's an Americanization or not. I just wonder whether we actually need it to just rein things in a little bit and say, just hang on, let's just calm down. And I think also, as another side point, I'm rambling a bit, but it might give more opportunities to young players to come through. If teams are sort of going, well, actually, we can't spend 30 million on a new right winger, but, we've got someone there in the youth team and we can maybe bring in as backup for a bit and see if they can make it. You might get more young players coming through, more opportunities to develop. Don't know, it's food for thought, certainly.
No, I think that's definitely valid. Amos, how about you? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, just picking up on the point David made there about seeing younger players coming through. I follow cricket quite a bit, and ongoing at the moment is a new competition, the 100. And when that started, it is about as American as an idea as you can get. It's a franchise league. You've got, I think it's 8 teams across the country. They're all called names like Manchester Originals, Trent Rockets, London Spirit. You get the example, but there were quite strict financial controls on the sort of moves and sort of players they could get in there. There's a draft to start off with, and the original names and teams that came out of that draft were sort of shifted about a bit because of COVID. Some overseas players pulled out, some moved to a different team, etc. But one thing that's been really great watching that game, and there's also a little bit to do with players playing test cricket and the politics of all that, which I won't go into, but we've seen some really good young players come through and make names for themselves. And one of the main objectives of the 100 was exposure to a mass market of wider audiences. Now, I don't think any of us will sit here and argue that football is in need of widening its audience. It's the most watched sport in the world, I think I'm right in saying. So it doesn't need any more marketing. It should be okay from that point of view. But in terms of the evolution of the game, football is broken at the moment. It's in an absolute hole. We're seeing that this summer with Barcelona and the numbers coming out of there. Whilst they may be, we look at them, they may seem astronomical. We can't necessarily comprehend them. They're utterly mind-boggling numbers in terms of a business. And if any other business was being run like that in the outside world, it had been shut down 5, 6, 7 years ago. It's not sustainable. So it seems incomprehensible for someone like Barcelona to cease to exist given the history they've had. However, at the end of the day, when the money runs out, it runs out. And we could be looking at a future, if it carries on like this, where a European football landscape of Manchester City and PSG dominating and being a duopoly over the European football landscape. Whilst as a City fan, the trophies might look good in our cabinet, from a personal point of view, for a lover of football, it's not necessarily where I want the games to be heading. So change needs to happen. Yeah, that's undoubted. Like I said, FFP hasn't worked. So, and even from the opposite side of you, the investment side has just served to protect the established clubs it tried to protect the established clubs. AC Milan will testify against it doing that, but FFP is broken. Something needs to change. If this is the next best option, then the sooner it comes in, the better.
I think we could be talking about this all night, to be fair. Just keep it going.
I think we need to, don't we? I think we're at a point where, as Amos says, we could potentially be looking at 2 clubs who win the Champions League every year, maybe. I don't know. If we let things continue to, it's out of control. It is out of control as it is now. And I don't know. I think it maybe in an ideal world, you just have clubs that self-sustain, and obviously that means the likes of your bigger clubs of the top 6, maybe 7 if you include Leicester in England. Your Barca's, your Real Madrid's, your historically more successful clubs will always generate more money and always be able to spend more money. Is that the fairest way to do it? Maybe not. You could argue that teams like Leicester have forced their way into there, but then they've done it from having a tie. I don't know if he's a billionaire or he's a millionaire, and he's obviously helped them along the way. It's difficult because then you're sort of saying like Burnley are never going to be in the top 6, which I suppose at this stage, any Burnley fans will sort of go, well, yeah, we're not going to be in the top 6, but then surely they should have an opportunity to be in the top 6 and have that dream. Whereas, it's a close shop, isn't it? It's a close shop.
Definitely.
There's no way Burnley are ever going to finish in the top 6, getting the Champions League. It's not going to happen. And that's not really their fault. That's just the restraints that have sort of ended up being left on them by the way that the whole not even this country, football in general is run. But I mean, I certainly don't know what the answer is. Salary caps might be the right thing to do. Measuring revenue might be the right things to do. I think the way the TV deal split in England is good. I know that doesn't happen in Spain, or it might be happening soon, but it certainly doesn't at the minute. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't know what the answer is, but we've got to a point where it's well out of control now, and I don't know how we get back to any sort of... I mean, I don't know what normal is, to be honest. This might be normal. I don't know what it is.
We just need a reset. It just needs a big finger on the reset button and we all start again. Yeah.
I think maybe you sort of go, there's no transfer fees anymore.
Yeah.
It's just free agency. If people want to move, you don't get any transfer fees.
Yeah.
And just wipe that out that way. I don't know. But then again, I'm trying to think of ways that you can just open up the competition so that, Crystal Palace can become a force in the Premier League. If Mo Salah decides he doesn't want to play for Liverpool anymore, he's not going to Palace. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I don't.
I think
I don't know what the answer
the big
is to a
spectre
lot
of
of
the
things
Super
in life.
League has sort of added to this, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think from one hot topic of debate, we'll go back to another one, VAR from last season, that I think for me ruined quite a bit of football. But I think in the opening weekend, I think it had quite a big improvement over the Euros, seeing it being refined. I think referees letting a few things go. It wasn't perfect. I think I picked up on a few incidences. The Arsenal penalty that we can talk about, which I think should have been given. I think Burnley's goal, where Tarkowski decides to steam train through Morpay. And I think as well with the new offside rule, thicker lines and stuff like that. I think Bruno's third goal, where he's just, you'd say last season he's offside, but this season he's in line. That was given. So Amos, I'll start with you. What did you make of VAR in the opening weekend?
My one issue with VAR has always been I don't have a problem with referees getting decisions wrong as long as those decisions are made swiftly and they're made succinctly. As a match-going supporter in the 1920 campaign, I think it was when it was introduced, every time there was a VAR check, it was desperation on the terraces. It really was the most horrible experience for however long it went on. And granted, City's relationship with VAR has been troublesome at the best of times, and that doesn't help. If decisions are going your way, they are a little bit easier to take than not. But even when it was, say, for example, checking a City penalty, and we were looking at 2 minutes going to the not even going to the monitor, just 2 minutes out of the match that you've paid for, a big lump sum of money you spend on, say, a season ticket or a ticket each weekend, and it just made it really unenjoyable. So far, it has been swift and it's been succinct, even when those VAR checks have been going on. Like you said, the Tarkowski one, for me, is mind-boggling how that's not been given as a foul. He decides to pull out a wrestling move, essentially, where he's running to get his head onto a ball and he just gets rid of Mopé, I think it is, like he's not there, which is bizarre because you'd back Tarkowski to win the header outright. So I'm not quite sure why he's having to do that. The Fernandes one was probably offside last year, but like you say, I think it was his third goal. So in terms of the context of the game, it didn't necessarily matter so much. And like I said, the check was quick, it was fast, it was probably no longer than 30 seconds. And you go, right, okay, even if his left toenail is offside, fair enough, it's marginal, benefit of the doubt to the attacker in that situation. So like I say, as long as it doesn't take 45 minutes to get a corner decision right, I'm not complaining really, but it does seem to be a bit more positive so far.
Yep, I think it was positive, definitely, first start of the season. David, I know Liverpool had a few VAR issues last season, but you think that the opening weekend gave some promising signs for what we've got to look forward to for the rest of the season?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, as Amos referred to there, going the match when there's a VAR decision is just the worst. It is the worst, especially if it's a goal and you've scored and you've celebrated, and then you go, "Oh my God, VAR!" You know what I mean? But it might be me. I don't think there was one at Norwich, Saturn. Am I right in saying that? I don't remember VAR getting involved at all.
No.
Yeah. So I mean,
Only
obviously,
I think that was the only one where it was a bit like, oh, it could be given last season, but this season.
Yeah.
But other than that, there wasn't much.
I mean, there wasn't really a hold up in the game.
No.
For it. So, personal opinion, again, didn't see a lot of football on Saturday, just purely from the travelling and stuff like that. It was an improvement. Personal opinion. I don't know whether that's going to last. We'll probably have to wait a couple of weeks to definitely say, right, yeah, it's spot on. We've got it right. But certainly, improvements. I like that. I like that they've looked at it and gone, right, well, that's not right, and we need to change that. And I also understand that, as you said there, Bruno Fernandes scores, and you go, oh, well, last season that would have been. You're always going to get that. You know what I mean? Like when the VAR was here, when it first came in, people used to say, well, if there's no VAR here, that counts. You're always going to get people referring to, some people don't. We're designed not to like change, aren't we? We're habitual creatures. So, personally, I think it was good. As I say, didn't see a lot of football, so can't really comment too much on other stuff. But if that's how it's going to be, if there's going to be shorter waiting periods, I think an improvement in communication would be nice. Just in the grounds, especially if don't just say there's a VAR check in progress. Tell us there's a VAR check in progress. Tell us why there's a VAR check in progress. Maybe let us hear the discussion of the referees of what they're checking, what's the issue. I mean, Amos has referred to cricket in the 100. I was watching the test earlier this week, and every time you got lucky, mate. Every time you get, I know.
Big Java,
you can't let him run it in. Just a collapse, wasn't it? Just absolutely. But you heard the conversation. You heard the conversation of let's go to ball tracking. Let's check Ultra Edge. There was one point where they had a review and he just went, mate, there's no point. It was a no ball. There's no point. And I just, that's what we need in football. That's what we need. Like someone at the VAR just saying, mate, he's fouled him on the edge of the box. Just pull it back. That's a foul. Not like, let me zoom in on it from 15 different camera angles at 10 different speeds. And, just it's a foul or it's not. I think that's all we need. But yeah, certainly, improvements definitely. Let's keep them going.
Well, big performances, India aside. We've spoken about Salah and Bruno, and they were top three with Pogba of FPL points this week. So I don't know if you guys are into fantasy football. I, for one, am not, because after 1 week and a bad week, it's game over for me. But David, who was in your team? Any big scorers and any changes for next week?
I'm trying to think of my team because I do a draft team as well as a normal fantasy Premier League team. But in my Premier League team, I don't know whether I had Son. So he obviously got me a few points. I went for Shea Adams, who I'm probably not going to pick going forward. I just assumed that Danny Ings going, he was going to be someone. I know he got an assist, but with Adam Armstrong there, he's probably not going to score that many goals. I had a couple of City players in there.
Unlucky.
The one in there, I don't know. I had Mendy in there. Mason Mount got me a few. Mason Mount got me a few points. I had Kasper Schmeichel in goal, so he's not bad. But I mean, obviously, Bruno Fernandes and Salah, they're your go-to men, and I think you keep them in all season, don't you? Even because there's a potential that they'll do that again at some point. There's a potential Fernandes will score another hat-trick, or Salah may score and assist twice, and you know what I mean? I think anyone to pick Pogba will be quite happy as well, 4 assists. But yeah, I think the biggest letdowns are probably City players. I think Trent and Van Dijk getting Trent especially not getting any assists but getting a clean sheet is a good thing. Otherwise, you're in trouble. So yeah, there was a few that let me down this week. I didn't have a great week to start off with, but as I say, I focus more on the draft side of it, because I'm like you, one bad week and you sort of go, I'm out. Whereas in the draft side, it's all to play for. So yeah, looking forward to the rest of the season.
Amos, how about you? I know City let you down, but did anybody else let you down?
Well, actually, I tend to sort of steer away from picking players in my own club because I tend to think I'd jinx. I actually had Mahrez in there because I'm thinking Sterling not necessarily fully fit after coming back from the Euros, blah, blah, blah. But I back Mahrez for a good start to the season. It may come on Saturday against Norwich, but not at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium anyway. I was looking at my phone at about what would it have been about 1:30 on Saturday afternoon. I'm seeing some of my mates who had triple captain Bruno Fernandes already, and they're on like 950 points, and I'm sat there with 2 from Ivan Toney and a couple from Luke Shaw, but. I went for Salah. I think you have to have one of Fernandes or Salah in that midfield. I went for Salah. I captained Salah, so it was bittersweet seeing him pick up a few points to start off the season. In terms of who I'm looking for the next couple of weeks, I think we have to sort of throw Lukaku into that mix of must-haves. I think he comes in on the official FPL one at about 11.5 million, which is. I think he's the second most expensive striker behind Kane. So he's someone who I don't think there's any doubt he's going to get, for me, minimum 15 goals. I'd be surprised if it was less than 20, to be honest. So looking at him, Gundogan, I'd probably get him out. Last season was exceptional for him. He picked up a knock on Sunday and probably will sit Norwich out and return for Arsenal, but I reckon he'll be deployed a bit deeper this year with Jack Grealish coming in and maybe taking that sort of advanced number 8 role, if you like. In terms of other players to get rid of, I think if anyone's still got Ben White in there, they should probably ditch him before Chelsea and City await Arsenal in the next couple of games. And actually, Edouard Mendy, I was looking at Chelsea's fixtures and they're being tipped as, and rightly so, being tipped as one of the favourites for the league. But I think they've got Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham, Aston Villa, and City. I think they're the next 5, which is, they could if they get a decent amount of points from them, players in FPL and Chelsea as a club themselves will be laughing. But there's potential banana skins for Tuchel early on.
Well, for FPL tips, definitely go to Amos because but I think we've had a really enjoyable chat about football so far. But I think one thing we do need to address, especially with fans being back, was certain instances in certain games. I think before the Leeds United game, there's quite a bit of violence. I know at Liverpool versus Norwich, there was some homophobic chanting, and I think as well in the Championship, the Derby game, racist and homophobic chanting as well. David, I think we've been over this topic plenty of times, but it's quite devastating to see it over and over again and not much improvement. What do you make of it all?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'll start with Liverpool. Personally, I wasn't aware of that being a homophobic chant. So call me stupid, call me ignorant. I always thought that Chelsea Rent Boys chant was just aimed at like Chelsea players being mercenaries and not really, homophobic. Obviously, now that people have said that they are offended by it and stuff like that, I mean, I certainly won't chant it again. I wasn't aware of it being taken like that, so it's wrong. It's completely wrong, and it won't come out of my mouth again. The United Leeds stuff is a bit dated, isn't it? Like, I understand that they haven't played each other for a while, but come on, it's 2021. Like, don't be going football just to have a fight. It's so stupid. We go to football, we have a good bit of banter. Do you know what I mean? Like, we'll give each other a bit of grief and whatnot. And obviously the fans will sing at each other. But, when you get out the ground, We're all human beings. Let's just go to a match and enjoy it. It is the most ridiculous thing I have ever seen in my life. And I'll tell a personal story. And this is going to sound a bit mad when I first tell you, but I'll explain what I mean. The Leeds hooligans are some of the most polite I've ever met in my life. And I'll tell you why. We went to Leeds about 2010. I'm going to say we were kids. It was the Carling Cup, it was called at the time, now the EFL Cup or the Carabao Cup. And we beat them 2-3-1, I think it was, something like that. Anyway, we walked out after the match. We were on coaches and we walked over to the coach park. It was like Pac-Man. If you looked at it from above, there was just people running in and out of coaches everywhere. We were just like, do you know what? Like, if it goes off, it goes off. We're not going to go looking for it. Just walk back to the coach, see what happens. Anyway, this lad comes running round the corner and just stops in front of us. And we're like, right, it's going to go off here. Do you know what I mean? We're going to have to sort of do something about it. And he just looked at us and said, do you want to have a fight, mate? And we went, honest to God, do you want to have a fight, mate? And I went, I'm all right, mate. It's all right, no worries. I just ran past me. And I was like, how polite are you? Like, just to ask me, would you like to have a fight, my friend? Like, I'm all right, actually. And he didn't just swing for me, just went, sound, so yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's daft. It's daft. I certainly don't go looking for stuff like that at football. Any sort of discrimination doesn't belong in football. There is a fine line between giving people a little bit of stick and giving people, going across that line and being abusive and discriminatory. As I say, I always just thought that Chelsea Red Boys chant was not. I mean, Taran, you'll know the guy from Red Men TV was saying, this is a few years ago. They're all Red Boys, mate. They're all Red Boys. At no point did anyone say he's being homophobic. And as I say, fair enough. If that's what it means, then fair enough. I mean, I won't chance it again, as I say. But at the time, I never ever thought anything of it. I just thought we're just making a point that Chelsea with the original Man City, if you like, when they came about 2004, and were just buying anyone they wanted, throwing money at it. It was never seen in English football before, and I think that's where it came from for me. Anyway, it was just that they're all mercenaries. They just spend a load of money. They're only going there for the money to live in London and stuff like that. So. I didn't see any racist or homophobic chanting at Derby. I've just read about that. It's wrong. Nobody should ever go to a football match and feel uncomfortable. Everybody should be welcome at a football match, It's tough because we've had all the online stuff as well, haven't we? And that, people are finally starting to get arrested and things like that for online abuse. And we're seeing what Saka and Sancho and Rashford had to put up with after the Euros, which is horrendous. And it's just sad. It's just sad that it comes back into, it's supposed to be such a happy time. Fans are back at the stadium. And we get to this point again where we're just talking about like discrimination and racist abuse. I just wish we could just turn it off in people. I just wish we could just turn it off. Do you know what I mean? There's no there's no difference between anyone who's got a different gender to you. Well, there's differences obviously, but I mean, they're all still human. Do you know what I mean? We all just want to go to match and, well, some of us want to go to match and ask people, would you like to have a fight today? And some will say no. Some of us just want to go to a match and enjoy it. So I just wish we could turn it off in people. I do.
Definitely. I think the biggest thing that's come out of that is you've said that you were unaware, of the meaning of the chant. So I think the biggest thing has got to be education. And going forward, I think education is the biggest thing for everyone. Do you think, Amos, that's the thing that can sort of combat this and make changes, educating people on the true meaning of things and sort of keeping them up to date? Because I think that's the biggest thing as well is times change, meanings change. And I think by, keeping everyone updated and sort of aware of, everything that goes on in the world, do you think that will make a big difference and we won't see as much of this in football stadiums?
Yeah, so just touching on the Man United Leeds thing, I was watching the videos and I'm seeing Cafe Nero chairs being flung down Oxford Road in Manchester. I'm just thinking that's so
at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, like what are you doing?
I wouldn't have made it back.
I know. Just sit down and have a brew. I actually spent most of last year writing a dissertation on football hooliganism, so it's a topic that has clouded English football for, you're talking well over a century, really. The sort of the hot point really was post-war, the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, and we speak about racism in football now. Not too long ago, in the sort of past 40 years, we've lived through a time where far-right groups like the National Front have at some points ruled the terraces. I'm talking neo-Nazi political groups here whose intentions were outright division. Not the Britain First political party as such, but that motto of Britain First. So when you look at where we are now and the inclusivity that is available throughout the football pyramid on most Saturdays and Sundays and even through the week, on terraces, it's a godsend. It really is, because we're seeing generations of football fans growing up in a world which is completely different to the ones their dads may have experienced, their mums may have experienced, and whatnot. Obviously, the caveat to that is, as we evolve as people, as we evolve as football fans, those not necessarily nicer ones evolve too. And we've seen that with the online racist abuse, which is a topic covered many a time before. And I don't think we need to go into it and say how bad it is. It goes without saying. But in terms of how that's combated, because the Premier League really helped out the hooliganism problem in the 1990s, and those old lads in their old Adidas gear and Stone Island gear on Saturday with Man United and Leeds were probably saying it was for the worse. Most of the population will say it was for the better. You've got seated stadia now, you've got a more inclusive environment. The next step, again, as we spoke about much for the majority of tonight, is how does football evolve into a place where we're living in the 21st century and footballers can go and do their job on the pitch without fear of their family being targeted by racial abuse or homophobic abuse or whatever. It's 2021 and there's still not an openly gay footballer in the Premier League. I think I'm right in saying in most of England's football pyramid. So there's changes that need to be done in it. And for me, as we see fans return, it starts with the supporters, because they're the ones giving the grief. And like we say, banter's quintessential to British football from the supporters. You chant, they may react back, they may not, they may get aggrieved by it, they may lose their head, they might steer into a tackle, or they might celebrate in front of the fans. I think as Jamie Vardy did, I'm right in saying, at the weekend. So it's part and parcel, but there's a line, and that line should not be being trespassed at any point.
Definitely. I think the biggest thing you've said there is evolving. I think football's evolved many a time throughout history, but I think once again it needs to evolve and sort of keep up with the times and make sure that the future generations can enjoy the sport and enjoy the game of football that I think all three of us have shown today that we love so much and care about so much. And on that note, as enjoyable as it's been, it must come to an end, I believe. So thank you, gentlemen. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope everyone listening and watching has enjoyed it. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week for the next edition of Box to Box Podcast.